So back again at Leave to Code. This is going to be a short video and I just want to treat some few things which I mentioned in the last lesson. I would like to show you how the browser structures elements and we'll use the developer tools to view this. So open your developer tools and as you can see, as we hover over this, okay, it gives us a preview of the amount of height and width it takes in the browser. So if I hover around the P element here, you can see you can see right here on the tooltip here, it says the width of this is 946.89. okay, that is the width by 118, which is the height. Okay, so if we right click on any tag here, we can edit an element, delete an element, copy the elements, copy the selector, hide an element, and much more. Okay, so we'll be using this in future lessons and you can test out some of the features here on your own. Also, any changes made here doesn't affect the code in your file. So if we refresh the page, everything goes back to the way they were. So down here we can see the style, the CSS styles that applies to the selected elements, and by the right here it shows us the name of the CSS file and which line of code this is from in your CSS file. So developer tools are really useful in debugging. Also, we can change our styles here if we want to, but note that this isn't going to change in your CSS file, but this helps you test out which styling works best for you without always having to switch between screens each time. I forgot to mention in the last lesson that inline block and block elements are all grouped into CSS display property. So right here the P tag has a display of block by default. Okay, the P tag is a block element. So now if I change this to, let me give it a display of inline. Alright, so the element goes back to the top because if you can remember, we used margin top property to center this, and inline elements don't have top or bottom margins. If you noticed also, margin auto isn't working because I changed this to an inline element, and the reason is because inline elements don't really know how much space they have left. Okay, I explained what margin auto is in the last lesson, so I'm assuming you're coming from the last lesson to watch this. So if you don't understand what margin auto is, then please make reference to the last lesson. Okay, so a block element always uses 100% of the width by default, but inline elements are treated like text instead. So that is why margin auto doesn't work when using inline elements. One more thing is width and height properties don't work on inline elements because they only take up as much space as necessary. So if you apply a width or height property to an inline element, the browser is going to ignore it. Next, if we scroll down, we can see the selected element structure, okay, like the margins, paddings, and even the borders. I'll be explaining the meaning of padding in the next lesson and also a bit more on how margins individually affects inline elements, block elements, and elements with inline block value. Also, we'll be covering how to switch between the three CSS display property. Okay, so depending on when you're watching this, make reference to the video to the next lesson. I will leave a link to that at the top right corner. Now if we hover around it, it shows us where the padding, margin, and borders are located and structures. Okay, so we are hovering around this margin, and as you can see, it is not there because this is an inline element. Hover around the border, it shows us, and padding, I'll explain that in the next lesson. Okay, in here is the text and everything. Okay, the main inline elements. Alright, so when you start building your own sites and coding a lot, you see the advantage of developer tools. Initially when I started, I thought I would never find developer tools useful, but without it I wonder how I would have survived. Okay, so one more thing I would like to show here is if we click on this icon over here, click on this. Now if we go to our browser, we are able to select text or elements individually. So if I'm to come here and I'm to click on this, it would highlight here. Let me click on the whole body and it highlights here. Okay, so at some point when you're creating a site and you want to get a hold of a particular element, you can just come here, then click on that element you want, and then it will automatically select, all right, on the right screen of your laptop or desktop, anyone. Then you're also able to see the style here. Okay, so also here I'll be explaining all of this here, what this means when we are treating websites responsiveness. Okay, but just a brief on it. This shows the device you're viewing it on. Okay, so let's suppose you create a site, okay, and you want to check how it looks on a mobile device or any other device. You can come here. This is iPhone 6, 7, 8. If we view this is how it looks. Okay, but I'll explain this a lot more when we start with building responsive websites. Okay, so that's really all for this lesson. More tutorials are coming soon. Please like this video for more and comment if you have any questions. Follow me on Instagram or Twitter, link in the description below, and see you in the next lesson, guys. Bye.